Something feels off. You can't explain it, but you feel it immediately. Something in the moment isn't right, and yet you hesitate because instead of reacting, you start questioning it. Did that actually happen, or did you misunderstand it? And suddenly, you don't trust your own perception anymore. You felt something clearly, immediately, but now you're questioning it. Was that actually what happened, or did I misunderstand it? That question appears faster than it should. Before you fully process the moment, before you react, before you trust what you felt. And that's where everything starts to change. At first, it's subtle. You question small things, a tone, a word, a reaction. Something feels wrong, but you don't say anything because you're not sure if it is. You pause, you analyze, you replay it in your head, trying to understand what actually happened. And while you're doing that, the moment passes. Over time, this becomes automatic. You stop reacting immediately. You start evaluating everything first. Every interaction becomes something to interpret, not something to experience. You look at a conversation, and instead of understanding it, you break it down. What did they mean? What did I miss? Was that intentional? And the more you analyze, the less certain everything feels because nothing feels clear anymore. Sometimes you notice it in simple moments. Someone says something neutral, but something about it feels off. You try to identify it, the tone, the timing, the expression, but the more you look at it, the less you understand it. And eventually, you stop trusting the feeling altogether. Other times, it happens in more obvious situations. Something clearly doesn't make sense. Something contradicts itself. But instead of pointing it out, you hesitate because part of you is already expecting to be told you're wrong. So instead of questioning the situation, you question yourself, and that becomes the pattern. There are moments where the confusion feels physical, not just a thought, a feeling. You try to understand what just happened, but the more you think about it, the less clear it becomes. It's like something almost makes sense, but never fully does. Like you're missing one piece of the situation. You go over it again and again, trying to find that missing part, trying to make everything align, but every time you get close, something shifts, the meaning changes, the memory feels different, and eventually the effort itself becomes exhausting because you're no longer trying to understand the situation. You're trying to stabilize it, to make it feel real again, to make it feel consistent. And when you can't, the confusion stays with you long after the moment is over. There are moments where reality feels unstable, not completely, just slightly, like something doesn't fully connect, like something is missing. You notice inconsistencies, small contradictions, things that don't align, but when you try to understand them, you can't. Because every time you get close to clarity, it shifts. The explanation changes, the meaning changes, the context changes, and slowly the ground under you stops feeling solid. This is how reality begins to blur, not through one big moment, but through repeated small distortions, a sentence that gets denied, a memory that gets rewritten, a reaction that gets dismissed. Each one small, but together, they start changing how you perceive everything. There is a psychological reason this happens. Your brain depends on consistency, patterns, cause and effect. When those patterns break, your brain tries to restore them. It searches for explanations, connections, meaning. But when the information keeps changing, the brain can't stabilize it. And instead of questioning the environment, it begins questioning itself. Maybe I'm misunderstanding, maybe I'm overthinking, maybe I'm the problem. And once that thought appeared, it starts replacing everything else. You stop trusting your interpretation, your memory, your reactions. You begin relying on external confirmation, looking at the other person, waiting for cues, waiting for clarity. But the clarity never comes because the instability is not accidental. It's created. And once your perception becomes unstable, control becomes easier because you're no longer grounded in your own understanding. You're adjusting constantly, trying to find the correct version of reality, and that version is no longer yours. There are clear signs when this begins to happen. You hesitate before reacting. You analyze simple interactions. You replay conversations repeatedly. You struggle to explain what feels wrong, even when something clearly does. You say things like, "I don't know how to explain it. Something feels off, but I can't prove it. Maybe I'm just overthinking." You begin doubting your own perception in real time, and sometimes you stop trusting it altogether. There are moments where you feel disconnected from situations, as if you're observing instead of experiencing, because experiencing requires trust, and that trust has been weakened. Over time, this creates a constant state of uncertainty. You don't feel grounded, you don't feel sure, you don't feel clear. Everything feels slightly unstable, not enough to collapse, but enough to confuse. And confusion is powerful, because when you're confused, you look for clarity. And if someone else provides that clarity, you begin relying on it, even if it contradicts what you felt. But there is something important to understand. Reality doesn't become unclear on its own. It becomes unclear when it is repeatedly challenged, when what you see, what you hear, and what you feel are constantly questioned, not all at once, but gradually, until uncertainty becomes normal. So if you find yourself feeling disconnected, unsure about simple situations, or unable to trust your own perception, pause for a moment, not to force clarity, not to solve everything, but to notice what's happening, because when reality starts to feel unstable, it may not be because it is. It may be because it has been slowly altered, distorted, shifted, repeatedly questioned, and the moment you recognize that pattern is the moment something begins to return: clarity, stability, trust. And the moment you see it is the moment the erosion stops.